Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're sharing with you the worst thing about every cruise line. And if you're looking to cruise sometime soon, you're gonna want to take some of these into account as you make your choice.
And we've ridden on all of these cruise lines pretty recently, so it's kind of fresh in our memory. We wanted to put this down. Let's jump right in there. We're gonna start with Celebrity, which is a pretty good brand of cruise line. We've done high-end celebrity ships and we've done kind of older celebrity ships. And that is really the problem. The worst thing about this cruise line is the consistency of the brand.
Yeah, I think it's a real big problem that they tend to pour their resources and their better trained staff into the newer ships, and then as they're bringing in new staff and training them, they tend to be doing that on their older ships. And I think that really is hurting them, and I think that's a detriment because you don't see the consistency across the board on their brand like you do with a lot of the other cruise lines. You get on the ship, it doesn't matter what ship it is, you're going to get you know exactly what to expect. It's going to be good staff, good whatever you're expecting on that one. But on Celebrity, you just don't know. There's no consistency. Even with things like food, it's still not consistent. Yeah. So it would be nice to see consistency across the board for their brand.
Yeah, we rode on the Apex, and the food was amazing on the Apex. It was one of the first sailings of the Apex, and I think they were, putting a good foot forward, which they should. And then we rode on the Constellation, and the food was not the same as the Apex. It wasn't even close. It felt like a completely different cruise line, although the price didn't feel like a completely different cruise line. So I think what they've got here is a problem where people go on some of their newer ships and they think they're amazing, and then they expect that on some of the older ships. You're just not going to get that. So the price may be a little bit cheaper on the older ships, but I would not sail on a Celebrity older ship again, because you'd be much better off just going on Carnival or something. You're going to get, I think, better food on Carnival or Royal than a Celebrity older ship. Now, if you're picking a newer ship, different story, but consistency across the brand, big problem for Celebrity.
Yeah.
Let's jump to Virgin, one of our favorite cruise lines. This is going to be a quick one because the worst thing about Virgin is the cost.
Yeah. I think the cost is really what's keeping this brand from taking off. Yeah. Because they're doing everything so differently than all of the other cruise brands. People are interested, but when you go and you look at how much the cruise is going to cost and you compare that to the same amount of time on a different cruise line and it's half price, you're not going to want to pay double to go on Virgin if you've never been on it and you know what you're missing out on. So I think that's really what's holding them back is the costs of the cruise.
Now, a lot of stuff is included on Virgin, so I will say that you're not going to have to pay for that you do on other cruise lines, but the cost is still high. I would put it, if cost was not a factor, it is probably our highest and a lot of people's highest rated cruise line, so it is worth the cost. But the worst thing about it is the cost. So what that means is if you happen to find a Virgin cruise for a deep, deep discount, just go ahead and book it because it's going to be amazing. Next cruise line we're going to talk about is Carnival, and we really struggled with this one because we're looking at this from on a per cost basis, and Carnival is one of the cheaper cruise lines. There's not a lot to complain about if you know what you're getting into. Now, if you don't know what you're getting into, the one thing you may say that's the worst thing about this is that Carnival can be a little bit more rowdy than the other cruise lines.
I mean, they don't call it the fun ship for nothing.
They don't.
They are encouraging you to have as much fun as possible. But if you've never been on one, we've been on multiple. I can't even remember how many we've been on. We've been on lots, over 10. And I just think that if you don't know going in that that's kind of the vibe of the ship, there are ways to avoid some of those rowdy times and rowdy areas. But if you don't know that going in, you can kind of get caught up in it and just be like, this is not exactly what I was hoping for. I wanted a nice relaxing cruise and it just wasn't going to work out.
Exactly. Next one also, it's a little bit tough because they're a pretty well balanced cruise line. This is going to be Royal Caribbean, but I think the thing that is the worst thing about them is that all of their ships, for the most part, the new ones, are so big that everything is crowded because they are selling at full capacity now. And it can be tough to get a ticket for a show, to get a seat anywhere you want to go. So if you don't like crowds, Royal is going to be definitely a cruise line to stay away from.
Yeah, it is very challenging because there are so many people. Now, the nice thing about it is throughout the cruise, the ships are huge, which is good because that's what's holding all these people, but there are also tons of spaces to spread them out amongst. However, their entertainment venues and restaurants and things like that are the ones that tend to get kind of oversold or, filled up because there's so many people on the ship, and they don't make the venues big enough to house even half of the people who are on the ship. So we missed out on a couple of shows on our last Royal Caribbean cruise because we weren't able to book it in time, and basically they got sold out and there were no open spots to go watch these shows.
Let's talk about NCL, Norwegian, which has always long been one of our favorite cruise lines, and we were on it recently, and there's a couple things we didn't like. One of them was just that they nickel and dime you.
It is so frustrating. Every single thing that they're doing, from announcements to special events and things like that, everything is to sell you something. There's always an upcharge for something. It just felt like I was literally just being asked for handouts every single place that I went on the ship. And it didn't used to be like that. They did turn a corner, I think, financially as a brand, which made things a little bit challenging for them. That might be why they chose to do something like that. But it's just really disheartening to be on a cruise and they've raised their prices to boot. So on top of that, they're nickel and diming you. So it's not like you paid a low price and then they're like, okay, we're going to charge you for all this other stuff. No, you paid a good price to get on there, and then they're still asking you for money. And then the other thing is, the announcements that I mentioned earlier is they're making announcements constantly on there, right?
Constantly. And it's just like, it's unnecessary. Most cruise lines have done away with that. Throughout the day, the morning, they'll wake you up. If you're taking a nap, forget about it. They're going to be announcing stuff literally all day, just about jewelry sales and things that you don't really care about. And it's in the flyer. So what's the point of that? You're just making people upset by doing that. To talk about the nickel and diming a little more, it's like the last cruise we were on with them, we didn't have a drink package because that's, they say it's free, but it's really not. It's quite a bit of money to get the drink package. So we bought a Coke at a restaurant, and instead of bringing you the can of Coke, and it's like $4 plus tax for the Coke, they'll just fill a glass with ice and pour whatever's left of an open can in there, and it's not a big glass. So you're getting about half a can of Coke for $4. And sometimes it's even flat. So that's just like, we had to send a couple of them back like that because it was pretty ridiculous. And we're just like, can we get the can, please? Because we're paying for the drink, and sometimes they just won't do it. So that's just not a good way to treat people, I think. With the prices they're charging, they really shouldn't be doing things like that.
Yeah.
So the next one's going to be Holland America. And we were on Holland America. We were a little surprised because we thought it was going to be great. And we got to say, we did not like the food, but also the lack of entertainment was kind of stunning. And I'd like to see what people who love Holland America think. So if you love Holland America, put it in the comments why you love Holland America, if those issues aren't an issue for you. But we just found that the lack of entertainment, we knew there wouldn't be like big Broadway shows, but there was really a lack of almost anything that we were doing on our cruise ship. Now, it was an older ship, so that does play into factor here, but we found it pretty disappointing that, again, like Celebrity, the name Holland America should be synonymous with quality, and that's what we always thought it was. But apparently And we have seen some of you comment that you've been on their newer ships and it is a little bit better. But again, I should just be able to say Holland America, quality. And I can't say that because their older ships definitely don't have quality.
Yeah, it was definitely disappointing because we were on a transatlantic cruise with them, and that's a long time with very poor entertainment choices. And we found ourselves just kind of, walking around in circles because there wasn't a lot to do. There wasn't a lot to entertain you. There weren't even a lot of entertaining spaces. So I think that that's something that they definitely need to be working on, and hopefully, they're doing with their newer ships is providing maybe more entertainment spaces and hopefully more entertainment options.
Yeah, and we do read the comments on here, and I have seen that a lot of people say that they take Holland America for the ports, which, I don't totally agree with, because we were on our Holland America cruise. We were supposed to go to 5 or 6 ports. 2 of them that we really wanted to go to, they ended up switching for no reason. There was no bad weather. We just found out there was another ship in the port. And I was like, you couldn't have figured this out, I don't know, a couple months ago or before you planned the cruise. So we ended up getting 2 of our best ports switched out for 2 lesser ports, and it just didn't work out for us. So that, again, that's consistency. If I book a Holland America cruise, and it was probably the most expensive cruise of all of them that we've taken, that's what made it so disappointing. If this was a $800 cruise, sure, that's fine. But this was not an $800 cruise, so that's what made it more disappointing.
Yeah.
Moving on to Princess. Princess is kind of in the same boat as Holland America and Celebrity. I'm really looking for one of these 3, Celebrity, Princess, Holland America, because we want to love these lines. We're in the age range that they should be catering to, but we just don't love them because they're not consistent. They're not innovative, and I think that's what it is for Princesses. They're not an innovative brand, and they just lack that pizzazz. They haven't found out, like Royal and Carnival, they have figured out what 30 and 40-year-olds love, and they are supplying it to them. I don't think Princesses and Holland American Celebrity have figured out what 50 and 60-year-olds really love, what's important to them. They're not innovating in that space just yet.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of room for improvement, not just for Princess, but like you said, Holland and Celebrity. I think that they can do some things for sure. They have the ability to. They have the spaces on some of their existing ships. They just need to, bring on some better entertainment for a wider audience in that older, 50 plus range. As they're building these newer ships, a little innovation would go a long way too.
Exactly. All right, next up is MSC, and where do we begin with MSC?
We're limited to only naming 1 or 2 things.
We're going to keep this short, but MSC is pretty easily the worst cruise line. Now, if you're cruising on MSC from the United States, it is marginally better. If you're cruising on MSC and you're an American overseas, you're going to have a harder time with it because it's just not going to be what you're used to. The couple things about MSC, first of all, their ships are amazing, and that's what makes this so disappointing. The price point is also really, really good. They're among the cheapest cruises, so in a way you do get what you pay for. But the food and the staff training are easily the worst of any cruise line.
Absolutely. I think that's 2 hugely disappointing things, because one of the things about going on a cruise is the staff. The staff usually makes it amazing. Your room steward, all of the dining staff, all of the attendants, all of the staff is what makes the cruises really an amazing experience for you. And it seems so frustrating to me that MSC is, especially since they've brought their brand over to try to encourage more Americans to, go on their cruise ships, they really just haven't been able to meet the bar up there. I mean, I think that they really need to bring in, if they want to continue to try to cater to Americans, they need to bring some Americans in there, because right now they have, some people making decisions who are not. And I think that's probably hurting their decision-making process.
So the Seascape is a little bit better than the other ships. And if you're watching this, and you're from America and you're cruising out of Florida, that's likely what you'll be on. It's not as bad as the other ships, but if you are doing another ship, be careful, watch some reviews, see what people say, because this is one that is tough. Like
the Meraviglia is another one that does sail out of Florida quite a bit.
Okay, but it's just, even at okay, I think we only paid $179 for our Meraviglia cruise, and
Yeah.
afterwards we were like, we'll never do that again, because even at that price, it was just...
But we didn't learn our lesson.
We didn't learn our lesson, so we did another one. So, let's move on to Disney. And Disney is a great cruise line. Obviously, they specialize in making good experiences. But a couple things everybody's not going to like about Disney is the cost. That cost of their cruises is kind of astronomical. I'm looking at a Disney cruise for 3 nights. I could do a 15-night cruise on some other lines. So
absolutely.
What is the
and
deal?
we have.
Yeah, what is the deal with that? And then for that cost, just don't think the food on Disney is up to par with some of these other cruise lines.
No, the food on Disney is pretty much the same as the food at the parks. And we've been to parks not just all in the U.S., but abroad as well. And the food is just, it's just not good food. It's cafeteria food. It's just not good quality. And I think that Disney could do way better, at least on the cruise lines. Even if they're not going to change it at their parks, which I doubt that they would, but at least on the cruise lines, especially if you're paying as much money as you're paying to be on a Disney cruise, you could improve the food 100%.
All right, it's your turn to sound off. Let us know in the comments what you think is the worst thing about any of these cruise lines. What did we miss? What do you think we missed as far as bad things on a cruise line? I think each cruise line has good, each cruise line has bad, some more than others. Let us know so others can learn from that.
Guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and we'll see you guys next time.